Thank you for tuning into this video about types of crimes. And mixed into this video, I will have some references to other videos, which I hope you will tune into when you get a chance. They are posted in the modules, certainly important to check out. Now, when I say types of crimes, I say that criminologists try to categorize crimes. Some crimes are violent in nature, some crimes are property crimes, some crimes are public order crimes. They try to categorize crimes to have a better discussion about them, and to better determine which crimes are, receiving harsher punishments and whatnot. And I start off with violent crimes, and violent crimes tend to be pretty straightforward. A lot of students can name these violent crimes. For example, you have murder. Murder can also be called homicide. Either of those terminologies can be used in this class. Homicide or murder is killing of a human. You, of course, have sexual assault, and you have other assaults as well that would be falling into the next slide, which I'm sure we'll get to in a moment. Sexual assault includes rape in this category, and murder and sexual assault tend to be seen as two of the most heinous crimes imaginable. So certainly included in these violent crimes. Violent crimes are crimes that are hurting another being, another human. Now we can get into assault and battery. Assault and battery has kind of a wide range of degrees, kind of like murder. When I think murder, I think there's like first-degree homicide, there's second-degree homicide, there's manslaughter, there's vehicular manslaughter. There's all different categories or degrees of crime. But assault has different degrees as well. Anywhere from, first-degree assault, which typically has some sort of weapon involved, to a second-degree assault, which may be like a planned out assault. And you can even get into different categories of assault, like mayhem, and mayhem, I believe, is the one that typically has dismemberment in Wisconsin statutes, that you have to remove the limb of someone else for it to be counted as mayhem. So assault has kind of a wide variety of different versions of it, similar to other crime categories. Now we get into kind of the trickiest area of the types of crimes, and that is types of theft. There is a violent crime that involves theft, and it's called robbery, and it's taking of something by force or fear. Now, when I think robbery, I think of like some guy sneaking out of an alley and trapping you with a weapon and forcing you to give up your wallet or your watch or something like that. That's robbery. That's, someone coming up to you and robbing you. And robbery can happen in different ways as long as it's using force or fear. That's where it becomes robbery. It would fall into a different category if it's not using force or fear. So think of like a robber in this case, taking stuff from someone, holding them up in some sort of alleyway, and robbing them of their stuff. Now we dive in a little bit to property crimes, and property crimes are, of course, crimes that involve damage or taking of property, and there's a lot. There's a lot of property crimes, and this is the most common type of crime. Property crime happens all the time, and it's where detectives tend to spend a lot of their time working, because a lot of times it's trying to recover certain property. The most basic of property crime is larceny, and that's when you're stealing something without any force. You don't have to threaten anyone, you don't have to hurt anyone to take something. You just take something. Maybe it's out in the open in someone's yard. Maybe it's in their open locker at school. That is larceny. It's stealing without force. And our last type of theft is burglary. And robbers and burglars get very often confused, and sometimes you can get sentenced to both robbery and burglary. Think about this. What if a guy breaks into a bank, runs into a security guard, threatens the security guard to help open a bunch of stuff. It could be maybe labeled as robbery and burglary and get multiple charges. But burglary is breaking and entering and then stealing. So think of all the burglars that you can think of on TV and movies. It's people, breaking into some sort of facility and stealing something or multiple things. And I always think of like Ocean's 11. It's a team of burglars that their whole goal is to try to, take some sort of object. They are planning on how they're going to break in and take something. And I think of like, when you think of bank robbers, you're really thinking of, well, those are robbers because they're confronting people and they're not breaking and entering. They're just walking right in. So I guess that would make them bank robbers. Burglars, I think of like people breaking into jewelry stores and taking things from there. Now, some other common property crimes that you need to know. You have arson. Arson is setting something on fire. When I think of arson, I automatically think of a crime that happened not too long ago in Wisconsin Rapids, where two high school students burned down the Carpet City. Now, Carpet City went up in flames very easily because it's filled with carpet, and this was a great example of arson in our own local community here. Two girls thought it'd be fun to light it on fire, and it burned down very quickly, and they were caught, and then they were charged with the crime. And I'd probably have to look up to see what happened to those girls as far as punishment. But they were, just in Wisconsin Rapids, a major arson case. Some other examples might be motor vehicle theft, where you have a car stolen, and I'll have some videos for you in the modules about motor vehicle theft. In particular, bait cars. Different communities that have a lot of motor vehicle theft will put out vehicles with the car keys still in them and watch them to see if someone steals that car. And then they will trap that person in the car, as in the car was bait. So there's some examples of property crime for you to think about. You could also add in there something like vandalism or like graffiti could be seen as property crime. Next category is public order crimes. And these are crimes that don't really impact other people. The only victim is the offender, the person that actually committed the crime. So some people in criminology call these victimless crimes. I don't really like that terminology. I prefer public order crimes, as in like we chose these things to be crimes because they go against the public order. They go against morality in some way or fashion. They don't hurt another person's property. They don't hurt any person physically. And it might be best to look at some examples. Here's some examples. Public drunkenness. Someone wandering around drunk in a neighborhood is not necessarily hurting property, not necessarily hurting anybody else. They're just drunk. In fact, Wisconsin has a bunch of laws about alcohol, like not, leaving a bar with an open intoxicant. That kind of stuff is public order crimes. It's about public order. Think of like prostitution. That's definitely a public order crime, and something that falls into that area of it's legal in some areas and illegal in some areas. Same with gambling. Gambling is illegal in most places in the United States. So gambling is that hurting anyone? Is it taking property or damaging property? No. So these fall into this very specific category. Drug use. If you look at any of these, prostitution, gambling, drug use, they could hurt like the offender's family. So there could be a victim there. Like drug use, people whose parents are drug users are impacted by that. So certainly they could be seen as victims as well. But overall, these fall into their own category. They're not going out of their way to harm other people in particular, even though there are some other victims for maybe people that are close to the people that are in these criminal activities. And you could probably think of a whole host of other things that fall into this public order crime area, like, how about not cutting your grass in your lawn? Or how about, I don't know, public nudity or something like that? That would be a public order crime. It's not, well, it might be harming other people as well, but I mean, it's not really something that's harming or disrupting or hurting someone else. Next category is white collar crimes. And white collar crimes are business related crimes. So think of things that are related to a business, and we'll dive into some of those crimes. For example, securities fraud. And I'll share with you a video about Bernie Madoff. He's a great example of someone that committed securities fraud. He did illegal activity using the stock market. In particular, what Bernie Madoff did is what's called a Ponzi scheme. He told people that he was going to invest their money and guaranteed to give them back 10%, as in like a 10% increase. They would increase their money always by 10%. And that's something that's unheard of in the stock market. It's rare to have anyone that can like consistently give you back a 10% return. So Bernie Madoff was actually not investing anything in the stock market. He was just giving back 10% of their money and then convincing more people to sign up with him to pay off more people. It was basically a pyramid, a Ponzi scheme, and I'll try to find you a good video to see what that actually means. But there's other things you can do that are illegal involving the stock market. I always think of insider trading, where if you have a stock in the stock market, like Apple or Microsoft, those companies have to share every single thing that happens, good or bad, with the company. And if you get inside information that something bad's going to happen and you sell all your stocks in advance, that can be seen as insider trading, that you had inside information that other people didn't have. And the great example of that is Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart got inside information about a cloning company that something wasn't going to work out. She sold her stocks the day before they were going public with this information. So she had inside information and she did stock market trading based on that. And that's illegal. She went to jail for that for a few months and then was released. Some other white collar crimes would be stuff like insurance fraud, or really most frauds fall into the white collar crime area. Stuff like credit card or check fraud. One of my favorite terms to use throughout the year is embezzlement. If an employee steals from their own company, that is embezzlement. So, for example, if someone at Festival Foods were to take a bunch of shopping carts home to keep, that would be embezzlement. Or if you've ever seen the movie Office Space, they set up a program in their business's computers to take basically pennies off of every transaction. And when thousands of transactions happen, they eventually make a ton of money because they're just taking a little bit throughout to that system. That would be embezzlement. Or let's say someone works at a paper mill and they take a bunch of reams of paper home and they're not supposed to. That could be embezzlement. So stealing from your own company could be that. And it could lead to other crimes too, because imagine what if someone's working at some big scientific firm and they take home a prototype and then they give it to another company? So it could be embezzlement, and there could be some bribery going on, which is like selling influence or power in a company. And bribery, it's actually illegal to be bribed and illegal to bribe. So you would get potentially caught on either side of that if you're bribing someone or if you are being bribed. And the last common one, as far as terminology, is tax evasion. Like when you're filling out your taxes for that April deadline every year, if you don't report income or you underreport things, that is considered going against tax law. That's tax evasion. It's avoiding taxes. That is also illegal. It is also, you may think, oh, that sounds like a victimless crime. But in the big scheme of things, the victim is the federal government or the state government. They need the money to do their programs and stuff. Now, any of the crimes we've talked about so far could be also categorized into organized crime. Whenever there's a group of people that come together with the sole purpose of committing a crime, it could be organized crime. Organized crime tends to happen a lot with things that can make a lot of money, Like there could be organized crime involved with um, prostitution or theft or drugs or trafficking of weapons. I always think of like Al Capone. I think of people that were running, illegal alcohol distribution during Prohibition. Those are great examples of organized crime. Typically, they get involved with a lot of violence. Typically, they get involved with a lot of like bribery of police officers or government officials and threatening people to get stuff done. So, illegal acts being done by an illegal organization, that's organized crime. And today, it might be in the form of like gangs, maybe in the form of groups like, well, let's say the KKK gets around to doing some sort of criminal activity. They could fall into the organized crime realm. And the FBI tends to focus on this organized crime area because it's difficult to track large groups over potentially in multiple states or international. If you've seen the show Sons of Anarchy, there's a lot of different organized crime outfits out there. There's mafia organizations, mob organizations, gangs. All of that does exist, and the FBI is working on taking them down. And our last crime category is the newest crime category, cybercrime. Anything that's utilizing the internet or websites to commit a crime or a computer to commit a crime falls into cybercrime. Pretty simple. And I got a great video for you that you should tune into, a TED Talk that showcases some cybercrime from different perspectives. And this can include a lot of different things. There's a lot of cybercrimes out there. There's hacking, there's piracy, there's viruses. If you make a virus and put it out there, that's cybercrime. If you make malware and put it out there, that's cybercrime. We're seeing a rise of cyber terrorism, where organizations and countries are creating, units to um, hack into another country's power lines and shut down power for a city, or make a nuclear reactor think that it's overreacting, that it's going to melt down. So there's a real threat of cyber terrorism out there. On a closer level to people, there could be cyber stalking by individuals. There could be people hacking into people's phones and posting obscene pictures or posting, messages that they're sharing. There's a lot of that potentially going on out there, and all of that falls into the category of cybercrime. It becomes very difficult to deal with because you could be a cybercrime specialist for the FBI and find all this cybercrime activity, and it could be in a completely different country, or it could be impossible to trace. When things are on the internet, it makes it potentially more difficult to crack down on it rather than having some physical evidence and some physical space of a theft. It could be hard to trace and hard to catch up on and hard to get money back or whatever was taken back from these cyber criminals. Okay, now those are the different types of crime. They are categorized for you into different areas that will be important to know, and hopefully I'll get some review stuff out to you so you can practice categorizing things into the right areas. Have a great rest of your day.